What's up, Rip City? Before you listen to this episode, I just want to apologize. We had some technical difficulties this episode. Not only does my microphone for most of this episode, if not all of it, sound horrible, but also we had some connection issues where the recording didn't necessarily record very well. So bear with us as you listen. Some parts are a little bit harder to listen to.
When I play out a game and then talk, I'm trying, Jennifer.
Rip City, what is going on? We are back for another episode of the Unbiased Trailblazers. This is going to be part 2, so thank you for coming back. And as always, we got Fowad here with us. How are you doing, Fowad?
What's up? I'm doing good. It's nice Monday night, earlier than normal, but I'm excited to be here. Excited to have Keith back. Let's get right to it.
And Fawad just segued him in. We got Keith here as well. Keith, how are you doing tonight?
Geez, spoiler, Fawad. God, I'm good. It's good to be back with you guys, and I'm sure I'll say it again later, but thank you for having me on. I have not been podcasting like we talked about last time. Have not been doing it in a minute, so it's just lovely to come on and get to just spill all the Blazers guts out on wax.
We appreciate you joining us. It's always fun. And for those of you who did not listen to last week's 2 weeks ago's episode, that was part 1. We just kind of talked with Keith, got to know Keith a little bit. And now this is the podcast where we get to talk a little bit more about Scoot, and we get to talk a little bit more in depth with Keith and Fawad on their opinions on Scoot. So I'm just going to jump right into it because I'm very curious to hear what both of you have to say. Scoot has had some pretty good games lately, and then followed by some very questionable coaching decisions where he has played a little bit less. He's come off the bench all of a sudden. He was kind of rolling for like five or so games where he was having really, really good games, and then back to Chauncey Billups and his awesome plays and his awesome coaching habits. And we now see Scoot back on the bench. So I want to throw it to Keith first. We've been waiting on this. Keith, just tell us how you feel about Scoot in general.
I don't think it's any secret on the Blue Skies that I'm a pretty big Scoot stan. I'm up there. I think my nicest jersey that I have right now is my new Henderson jersey. Real happy with that guy. Although I've got a Klingon too, so I'm prepping for a new core. I'm getting things going. Haven't picked up the Shaden yet, but we'll get there as soon as he does. How about that? As far as my opinions on Scoot, I think contrary to much of Rip City, I'm higher on Scoot right now as far as locked in and say yes, this is our dude, than I am on Shaden. That's not saying I'm down on Shaden. I just have a lot more questions, and I think Shaden's target is a harder target to hit than what Scoot's is. Yeah, that's more like a segue towards other stuff. So sorry, go ahead.
We're gonna talk about Shaden in a little bit because that's something I want to talk about.
You're like, tell us about Scoot, and I'm like, let me tell you about anyone else.
But so Fawad, I'd probably say 6 or 7 episodes ago, I kind of mentioned he was getting a little nervous on Scoot. He wasn't totally sold on Scoot not being, what we want him to be. So I know it's kind of things can change as we watch things. But Fawad, how are you feeling about Scoot?
I think he's been doing a lot better since that episode that we had. Even if I look at our surveys, he won 4 or 5 in a row, and one more before that, so it was 5 out of 6. I think that was nice. A really good span. His numbers, his actual box score numbers were also really good. There's that one game in the middle of our episode last time that was just ridiculous.
Right.
So he's been undeniably a lot better. For that stretch, the last couple games he got a little bit cooler, but that could be because he got less minutes for some reason. But I say generally, my opinion of him has improved a little bit. It has to, because he's shown a lot more. He's shown things that he hadn't shown the previous season and a half. So I'm not Okay, I was never fully out on him. I just want to make that clear. I was never out on him as in like he's a bust, let's trade him. What I said at the time, if I remember correctly, was so what I said last episode, because I remember that more clearly. What I said last episode is I think he'll be a high level starter, but he probably will never break into the all-star level. And I think that I thought that even a high level starter is like it's like the best case scenario. He might it's not a guarantee that he gets there. Now, about 2 weeks later, I'm still mostly around there. I still don't think he'll ever be an all-star, but I think it's a lot more likely that he'll carve himself a nice role and have a long career as, a good starter on a playoff team, um, potentially a six man on a contender. But yeah, I think he's trending in the right direction for sure. The way he's been playing recently, like I said, he hasn't been playing like this the rest of his career. So it's a very good sign that he's actually improving, which it's a good sign. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
Keith, I'll let you respond there.
Oh, I was just gonna say too. I want to almost amend my rambling, bumbling starting intro statement earlier there with yeah, just kind of what you're saying. He hasn't been off to the start that any of us, I think, envisioned. When you get a third pick, I don't think this is what you thought it would look like for the first year and a half of games for him. But it's also been one of those where he's certainly been going the right direction recently. That game last time, it was against Brooklyn, right? Like 2 weeks ago when we were recording, and Scoot
Yeah.
just went off for the 39 and 11 or something like that, if I remember. He had a whole streak of games going to that. But even before that, we'd seen that little segment when Bjorken was coaching, where suddenly Scoot seemed to have more opportunity. He hits a game winner at the end and kind of says something about, yeah, I'd rather do this than being stuck in the corner because he's not an off-ball three-point shooter guy. Uh, I think the main thing to focus on, and maybe something that, since this has been so divisive among Blazers fans, the way that we can kind of come together is, yeah, he's not that dude yet, but he's going the right direction. And I saw, I did screenshot this, and I found this earlier, and I made sure to mark it in my phone because I wanted to have it for tonight, if I was going to have any sort of stats. David McKay, they put up a David McKay social media post on a game broadcast logo for the Blazers, and he basically compared. He brought up how when Scoot was coming into the league, everyone compared him to Russell Westbrook, and that game a couple weeks ago or a week ago when McKay brought this up, the per 36 numbers for Scoot at 20 years old and Russell Westbrook at 20 years old is almost identical. They both have 16.9 points. Russ has like a 1.3 more rebounds. Scoot has 1.2 more assists, and the turnovers are the same, the steals are the same going down the way. Obviously, they're not the same player. I'm not trying to say, yeah, we've just got a young Russell Westbrook. It's not the same kind of athleticism. I honestly think Scoot's court vision might be better, which again, I'd love to get into some of those details, but I think he's going the right way. And I think I might have said this one last time too, Fawad, and then we can kind of see how you want to respond, or how I can throw it back to you for that one. But what I said last time with Scoot was we don't historically have a good record where the point guard being like the leading offensive weapon is also a winning team. What you do have on most winning teams, outside of Steph Curry and outside of AI, most winning teams, the point guard is the playmaker and someone who can hold down the defensive end and can make on-court adjustments for his teammates when, we're facing a different kind of opponent with length, or a different kind of opponent that clogs the paint, et cetera, et cetera. And I think what I'm seeing from Scoot so far, even what I'm hearing in interviews, is him talking about already being aware of those adjustments. And he's not, the perfect basketball IQ player, especially in transition. He's got some rough things to get used to. I think it's just a matter of young 20-year-old player needing to have things slow down. But overall, I think what we see from this dude, especially in the recent stretch of good play, is the playmaking is there. The steals and the rest of it is coming in there. And if he can put together league average 3-point shooting and any good, high 18s to low 20s kind of scoring, man, I think that is exactly the kind of point guard that I want when we get the rest of our offense set up to maximize them,
Yeah,
Well,
I
and
mean,
you just mentioned something I want to add real quick. As you talked about the league average, shooting threes. The last 10 games he's had, he's shooting 44% from three. I mean, he's been
Wow,
shooting the ball very well the last 10 games.
that's excellent.
So that's a good look. Is that it's improving. Obviously, I don't expect him to shoot 44% for the rest of his career, but I mean, I will take 33%. I'd take 33% with him. So sorry, Fawad, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. I'll just follow up on that 3-point. Unless Keith, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, his shooting stretch this last 10 games has been really good, and it's been like decent volume too. Like some games he had like 4 or 5 makes, I think. I have it open
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, there's 2 games above 5 makes, a couple with above 3. So he's been shooting very well, and that's actually a lot. But I honestly didn't think he would have this kind of stretch. I didn't think he had it in him, because it's by far better than any other stretch he's ever had shooting wise. A lot of the shots were like not just wide open catch and shoots. He actually had some pull ups. He's hitting his catch and shoots a lot more consistently. So of course he's not gonna stay at 45% the rest of his career, but it's actually finally a sign that I think he's improving shooting wise, and something that gives me a little bit more optimism. Normally, I'm like, shooters rarely improve, and if they do, it's over the span of like their entire career, not season to season. But if he's putting together a 10 game stretch, which is like more than 10% of the season, I'm hoping maybe by next year we can get to like Alex said, like 33, 34 next year.
Well, and I gotta throw in here too. Even the 33 or 34% from deep, I don't think he's that far off that right now. And I'm with you where we shouldn't expect to see big jumps, especially in something like 3-point shooting, and especially if we remember that this guy's primary weapons when he gets good might not be 3-point shooting. Like his percentage being a little bit lower might not be as big of a deal if we're not talking like he relies on the three to get his offense going. He's gonna be driving into the lane and getting other things for it, so it's more of almost a tertiary weapon.
It just needs to be enough that the defense respects it.
Yes, it just needs to be enough to be a legitimate threat.
For him and for everyone else as well. Also,
And
he's actually at 35.5 for the season already, but like I'm sure that I expect that to go down a little bit.
yeah, it's tweaked up from like the 8 out of 10 the other night, and like what do you have? 5 of 11 on the game against OKC, even looking good in a rough game against OKC too, which I thought was again kind of a nice sign to see him producing well and playing well when the game itself wasn't going as well. I brought this up to you guys in the pre-pod show that we were doing a little bit here, but Sam Vecini, if anyone is not familiar in the audience, wonderful, excellent analyst, podcaster, and he does Game Time or Game Theory. No, I said game. It's the Game Theory pod, right? But they have he does kind of an extra segment afterwards where he breaks down just a single game footage from individual players, and he did one on Scoot recently after the Bulls game last Sunday, a week ago from last Sunday, where Scoot had a pretty good game. And Vecini goes through all the plays where he's looking at the good, looking at the bad, saying, what could he have done here? Maybe look for this pass to Shaden or cutting over to Denny here instead of driving down the middle. But one thing he continuously came back to is involving the 3-point shooting, and he was looking at the form and just the way the kind of Scoot's mechanics getting underneath him. He brought up how in some of the early shots you're seeing Scoot kind of like he's bringing the ball up and bringing it back to the head, and it's just one more thing where you're bringing it back, and that's one more thing you got to leverage, and it's one more way your shot gets thrown off. But even partway through the game, it looked more vertical, and it's here and going forward instead of, or up and forward instead of kind of having that little catapult action that we used to criticize Aminu for so much. So I think we're seeing him improve right in front of us. And I'm not saying that he's going to become like a 40% 3-point shooter, but I don't even know if league average, like 36.4 or whatever it is, I don't think that's really that out of range. If this is actually any sort of true improvement we're seeing. And I know I'm the optimist, but I'm just saying it's not as impossible as I think some, it's easy to get negative. I think, especially right now when there's so much turmoil with the team, and even when we win a game, it's like on the backs of veterans, and so it's hard for fans to feel comfortable with anything right now. And I don't know, I think that it's easy for us to get down on Scoop, but I don't think the 3-point shot is nearly looking as bad as I thought it was even last season.
No, I think you're spot on. I think another problem is he just doesn't really get the chance to even really display it either. He has these good shooting nights, and we're so excited for him, and then you go and he shoots. He has 2 games back to back where he shoots 1 3.
There's no consistency. Yeah,
he's just not getting that consistent playtime. He's not getting that consistent run. He's having to share the ball. He's having to come off the bench, and that's something. I mean, that's something for this whole season I've been complaining about. Is just we're a rebuilding team, but we're not rebuilding. We're not letting our young guys develop. We're kind of just throwing them in here and there, let them try to do a little bit for a couple minutes, and then pull them out and let the veterans come back in. And I get we're trying to show them off, and we're trying to get somebody to buy into them. But at the same time, we got to do something with our young guys. They're losing confidence. I don't want to get into the Shaden talk right now, but you can just tell these last couple games looking at Shaden, it's a completely different dude out there. Like, he looks defeated, and I don't blame him. I don't understand what the hell is going on with just the whole entire rotation and the game plans. And some of that is, I feel like, a Shaden issue, but a lot of it is, I don't think it's kind of out of his control. But I think the biggest thing for Scoot is just he needs the opportunity to kind of be the point guard and be the guy to run the offense for the majority of the game.
Yeah,
I agree that. Go for it.
Go ahead, Fawad. Sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you off.
It's all you. It's all you.
Yeah, I think Scoot and Shaden both. I mean, again, we've all heard each other. You guys have heard me talk about this plenty, so I don't want to be a broken record, but the problem originates with Chauncey. And if another podcast reference, just throw it out there, I'm sure we all listen to Mike on Locked On. Mike Richmond does a great job with the Daily Blazers takes, and he had some really good, just kind of info to feed the fans on some stuff recently about the team just not pulling in the same direction. And I'm sure we're all very aware of Chauncey at this point, and that your coach is going to want, especially a coach on the way out, is going to want to make sure that he looks kind of good for his next job. He's not playing for the future of the Blazers the way that we hope the front office is. And the players are going to play, but at the very least you would hope that these last couple games have just been so frustrating because, like you said, Alex, to see, so they say Shaden gets benched because he's not playing good enough defense. Well, that obviously isn't a rule that's being held universally across the lineup, because we have plenty of other players that are not known for playing, not plenty, but we have a couple other veteran players who are not known for playing good or consistent defense in any way. Then you, like you also said, Scoot goes through a 5 or 6 game stretch where he's getting 30 plus minutes, I think, for 5 in a row. And you could even say, like, I think 6 out of 8 or something like that, he had 28 plus. And it just so happens that most of those games he's looking pretty good. Then along comes Chauncey benching Scoot 13 minutes one game, 22 minutes the next game. And those are those 0 of 1 3-point games that you're talking about. His assists are down in those games even. It's just so frustrating because the consistency just isn't there. What's up, Fawad?
To be fair, on the 13-minute game, he did foul out, so that's like partially.
Oh yeah, no, that's you're right. And let's bring that up because I don't want people to think I'm just being totally biased and hypocritical about it. We are unbiased here, and yeah, the 13-minute game, I get it. That is partially on Scoot. If they say, hey, you got to come off the bench for any reason, you got to know how to play well off the bench. But we're talking about a rookie who's played 100 games total in the NBA, who started only 39 of those 101 games. I think he started 39 out of 101 so far. And we know that there are some players who are firecrackers, good guys in short minutes can come off the bench and just produce. We know there are players who need a longer runway. I think it's fairly safe to assume at this point, from what we see of Scoot in games where he gets a lot of minutes and games where he doesn't, this dude needs runway. He needs time to kind of get himself going and see the full court. His game is dependent on what he's doing with his teammates too. So you bring him into a bench situation where he's going to be playing with different players than he was playing well with the last number of games. B, he probably comes in feeling like he has to prove himself because he just had this great thing, was playing well, and it was taken away. So all the talk of, if you got to earn your minutes, if any of that gets in his head, of course he's going to go out there and rush things around a little bit. I'm not saying that excuses 6 fouls in 14 minutes. God, that is rough. But I just feel like it doesn't happen if he's not put in a position where if he was put in a position where he had any consistency, let's say it that way. If Scoot was put in a role where he knew what to expect and knew what to kind of fit into, but the problem is he was given one role and filled it great, and then he's saying take a much smaller role. So then what do you do? Do you, if you out in there and have a reduced role coming off the bench, do you think, okay, I got to go fill it up like I did before to show him? Or are you going to try and, ease off and say, oh no, they want less from me this game, so I'm going to, kind of like fit into that smaller bench space? I just don't think athletes are built that way.
Can I add something to your Chauncey Billups thing?
Okay.
Yeah.
you mentioned, he obviously is wanting to put out the best product, not for the Blazers' future, but for his future, correctly, and that makes sense. Totally get it. I 100% agree. I could argue, though, that we look better and play better when we have these younger guys in than when we have Simons being our focal point and when we have Sharp and we have Scoot coming off the bench. We look 10 million times worse than we do with when we had that stretch run with Scoot starting and playing good and being a focal point and Sharp playing pretty good, like we look so much better. We look more energized. And to me, if you're wanting to put your best foot forward and try to show what you can do, that's what you got to do, because you're running back the same team you had last year that had, did not play good. And now you got these young guys that are trying to develop and you're not really giving them the chance to. I don't know.
Well,
if he gets another head coaching job, I don't know how.
I would
If he
be
leaves
shocked
us
if he
and
got
finds
another
someone
one.
else, it is mind-blowing to me.
I think especially in these last couple games with Billups, again, if we're talking about a coach who he knows he's a lame duck, he knows his contract wasn't extended like last year when normally it would be for a coach in these situations.
Mhm.
Maybe other games, like you said, the numbers show that Scoot has a better a net than Anthony as far as running the offense at this point. That's on the books, and coaches are going to see that kind of stuff. If he's looking at the young guys though and thinking, they have good nights and they have inconsistent nights, or maybe he's looking at a matchup and saying, well, they struggle against length, and here comes a team with a bunch of length. The veterans are just going to be more reliable. How about on a game like this last road trip, a streak of games where we're facing weaker opponents? Orlando bringing some players back, but not in great shape. Charlotte obviously is Charlotte. You get some of these games, and maybe the coach is saying, I need the easy win, so he doesn't want the unreal.
We are back after some difficulties. I have no idea what just happened. But I honestly don't even know where we left off because I stopped being able to hear everybody. But I had said I wanted to add on to something that Keith mentioned when we were talking about Chauncey Billups. One of the things also that I was thinking about is he's not going to go be head coach of some contending team. No team is going to look at what's happened here and be like, that's the guy I want running the ship for us. So he's going to be going to a team that most likely, if he were to get if another team decided, yeah, that we've seen from there sounds like a good idea, he's going to go to a team that's rebuilding, that has young players. And if what you're seeing is he's benching your young players to play these veteran guys and not really developing them that well, that can't be a good look for him either. I mean,
Right.
And maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm wrong. To me, though, he's going to go to a team that's rebuilding or has young guys that need to develop. And if he can't develop players on our team right now, why would another team be like, yeah, he can develop these guys here, though? To me, it just seems crazy, even on that part of it.
I don't want to get too much into Chauncey, but I would be shocked if another rebuilding team picks him up. I don't see what they would see in him. Like, our young guys I don't think they've improved at a faster rate than they would have under any other coach. So I think if by some miracle he gets another job, I think it would be a team that has a lot of old vets that are still trying to make the playoffs, like a Chicago or something like that, more than someone that has Phoenix too, but more than a team that has like young talent that they want to develop.
And sorry,
a team with all these vets that the team secretly wants them to lose, but we'll take Chauncey so he can start the vets and still lose.
I'm with you though. Like I feel like honestly Chauncey's future, if he wanted to look good for a developing team, Alex, he should be putting Scoot in, like we're saying. He should be playing these young guys and showing, hey, look what they're doing now. Hey, Scoot was just playing well. Let me make that look like I did that. But if he's leaning more towards the vets, like we've been saying, for a contending team or a competitive team full of vets, you're going to want to do that, yes, is like a player's coach like Chauncey, that guy that can kind of relate, like, hey, I've been there as the player in the locker room. But you're going to want a dude who has the mentals too. And Chauncey very much has not shown with his vanilla offense or his lack of ability to adjust to in-game adjustments. That was horrible phrasing by me. But there is nothing that tells me anyone's going to look at Chauncey and think, oh, this guy is a competitive mind for coaching. I think his only future is an assistant coach job. I think this was his chance. And maybe if Damon stayed and if we'd had a team full of veterans, then maybe he would have looked good. And maybe in 5 or 10 years, we're like, dude, Chauncey Billups, the head coach Chauncey Billups has had several teams go deep in the playoffs. But once we move from good veteran team here to younger roster, and it just has exposed him for what he is, I don't think he has a head coaching job after this. I think he goes back to being. That's why I said the Phoenix. Why I blurted out Phoenix Suns a minute ago. Fawad is just I could totally see him going down there, because the problem they continue to have year after year is their veterans can't stay
They're not
focused. You
leaders.
can't keep these. They have a whole bunch of dudes who, as soon as stuff gets rough, they'll start pointing fingers, and that's where you need Chauncey Billups. That you need him in the locker room for that. But it's not up here. We don't need him here. And if I can just slight pivot on something else we were saying before, the tech difficulties here, Fawad, we'd kind of been starting to kind of commiserate about the vets, and if nothing really happens at the deadline, because I think I'd said maybe not all of them get moved, but someone's got to go, and I think Anthony Simons is the biggest obstacle for our guys developing. You had brought up, what if no one gets moved? I sincerely don't think that's a possibility. Where I don't see how Joe Cronin moves no one and thinks that he's keeping his job. It would just be such an extreme after we've already had years of running it back. I guess you could say Denny is new, right? But yeah, it would be crazy to me if that happens. So I don't know. I'm hoping for one. Give me one. Just give me the one.
I hope you're right. And like logic says you would be right too, but last year at this point, I was certain that Anthony would be gone by the last deadline, or if not, then by this summer, and he's still here. So I don't know. I'm hoping Orlando comes through, but I'm not gonna be too optimistic yet.
I'm gonna quote the great Ricky Bobby Fawad and say, "Don't you put that evil on me. We are getting rid of somebody, for the love of God."
You talk about quotes. The whole thing when Fawad, the pod that you guys had a while ago, when I jumped into your chat, and I think I dropped the from Blues Brothers, don't blaspheme in here, like very much that same kind of line. When you were talking about, I think the low expectations of Scoot at the time, right before he blew the lid off of everything.
If there's one thing sports has taught me, if we're all quoting things, if there's one thing sports has taught me, it's from Ted Lasso. It's the hope that kills you. So I'm not getting the hopes up at all.
Oh.
You know what? I gotta say that was a very good round.
10 out of 10, and that was a great quote right there.
That was good quote tennis. Good quote battle back and forth.
Yeah,
I could get another Lasso though, and they're just.
I don't think our fan base could handle not trading somebody.
Yeah, no, okay, so there we go. I don't think we can handle not trading someone, so I'm firing back with another Ted Lasso, goes up and taps the believe sign. You gotta believe! Yeah, like it's...
I like it.
If you guys have not watched Ted Lasso, watch it. I don't pay Apple TV, whatever you gotta do, go to Walmart, buy the DVDs, buy the seasons, whatever you have to do. It is one of the greatest shows ever, and you don't even have to like soccer to want to watch it.
It's such
I've never seen a soccer game in my life.
Really?
It's one of my favorite shows of all time. Yeah. No, I lied. I've seen one game, like I think 2013 or something like that. Whenever Brazil was in the World Cup finals and they lost like 7-1 or something like that. Maybe the semifinals. That was like the only game I've ever seen in my life.
Y'all need to come to a Timbers game with me this spring. Let's get you to the go experience the real thing. That's crazy.
I do. Wait, the Timbers games get pretty wild.
Oh, the Timbers games are fun, man. We have a good old time. My brother, my dad, and I have had 2 tickets in the Army section, so like just the standing kind of general admission area, and you spend the whole time with song sheets and clapping and singing, like marching down the aisles back and forth, and yeah, it's a great old time. But yeah, man, Lasso is like that's for. I don't know. My usual phrase is like they Disneyfied it. I know this one is not actually on Disney; it's on Apple, but we don't need to give them all the sponsorship names anyway. But it's like it's so happy ending, kind of like nice vibe feel and all that. I don't usually get into those shows, but Ted Lasso was great. There was so much fun in that, man. It's wholesome, but it's still witty and goofy. Like it's wholesome with like a bit of a more adult humor. Yeah.
And in all honesty, you can learn a lot from that show. Like legitimately, you can learn a lot from just watching that show. Not like learning like the sports sense, but just like how to be a better person, how to be a better leader, how to be a better boss. Like there's so many things in that show that you can relate to like real life that it's unbelievable. How the hell we even got to this point?
We're not
talking about coaches. We're talking about coaching. That's what it was.
We're not looping back just yet. If we're already this far out, I need to keep going. Like I said, Ted Lasso, one of my favorite shows of all time. But Apple TV puts out such good shows. Are you guys watching Severance right now?
Oh, Severance is great. Oh my gosh.
Severance season 1 finale is the
don't tell me
ever put on TV.
Okay. I was like, we watched the first season. We haven't started the next one. The way that we do our shows usually, we binge shows. I cannot stand to watch an hour a week and then have a whole week of my life where I by the time we get back to the next episode, there's been so much going on. Like I don't the way it's not a good way to consume art, man. Like a 10 episode season, that's a giant piece of art in its entirety. If you view like 10% at a time, you can't appreciate the whole. So we go through, like, we wait
I
for a whole show to
disagree.
come out. That's we should get into this
See,
one, man. Like
I like the week to week. You get to like digest everything properly. You think about each episode individually. If you binge everything, like some shows are made to be binged, but like other shows,
that's fair,
you
yeah.
want the week to week. You don't want everything to just blur together, or you forget about all the little details. Like you want to take it all in.
When you go week
I
to
mean,
week, do you go back and watch an episode? Like, if you will you watch an episode a second or third time before the next one comes out?
Depends on how good the show is, but I have done that. I wouldn't say it's my regular thing, but yes.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I can
and then
give
you
you I
got
can shake hands on this one. I can agree with you on that one.
and then you got Married at First Sight, and you just watch that all the time.
That's not one I'm familiar with.
No one. You tell me you ain't never watched Married at First Sight.
I can't even tell you if I know what that. I don't even recognize that
Yeah,
name,
I've
bro.
never heard of it.
Let me get you guys in touch of my wife, and she
Google says
will.
it's a reality show.
She'll fill
Oh,
you
is this a
all in.
reality show?
It's on every time I'm in my room and she's watching TV. It's on. So
You gotta get her to come join Tara and everyone in the Trailcaster Discord, where we've got the real. Let's see, what was the stream name called? The Real Housewives of Rip City. They discuss all the reality TV shows going on, and it's a good old time. Yeah.
It's all about those dating reality shows. So subliminally, as I'm sitting in here doing something else, I'm hearing it in the background, and then somehow I like get half interested, and I'm like, "Oh, what did she say? Why is she saying that? I don't know. Who's that? I don't even remember that shit." But yeah. Anyways, back to basketball.
Yeah. Shows are fun, and wholesome shows are great. Sports shows are great. Basketball itself is a wholesome sports show where it's an improv every week. They don't even write the script; they just go out there and perform. It's
right now, I need some Ted Lasso when I'm watching the Blazer games because it's been rough. Honestly, no, it hasn't been that rough. These last couple games, this last couple weeks have been fairly competitive games. I'm fine with how the games have kind of gone for the most part. I'd hate to go ahead.
Honestly, the season as a whole has been better than I think most of us would have expected before the season.
There were definitely some games, obviously where we got completely annihilated and blown out and just were all in the dumps. But for the most part, most games have been fairly competitive. Obviously, we'd like to see some of the young guys a little bit more, but it's been a fairly decent season.
I cannot argue that I have enjoyed this season more than I thought I would, and I think I said that about last year too. Where before we split with Dame, before we ended that era, I was fully adamant on like, no, I do not want to go into a rebuild. I'm too old for this kind of fan thing. Where I didn't want to start over at zero again. We've been doing this. Like been watching since before Dame got here, but like I was wanting that chapter to continue. Once we got here, I have learned through other fans and other people in the Discords and other podcast friends like you guys, learned more to lean into the development, to the fun of watching these young guys kind of grow, to like kind of seed the garden, the Blazers garden, and see what we can like kind of get out of it as time goes by here. And so this year's been fun, but I am so. And Alex, like you said too, we've had a bunch of a good stretch of games recently. The best play we've seen from Scoot of his career. I am so frustrated that he has 39 starts out of 101 games. I'm so frustrated that these last number of wins we got. I'm frustrated that we had a 4-game win streak, right? 4-game win streak, which has been kind of rare under Chauncey's leadership. We should be happy about that, but I can't be happy because of how they won it. They won on the backs of the vets, and they're benching our young guys that we're supposed to be watching develop. Dude, right now, Scoot this season, he's averaging, this is Scoot in his second year. He's had 7 starts out of 40 games this season. He's averaging 2 less minutes a game than he did his rookie year. And his rookie year, as we all know, had injuries, had inconsistencies. He had a hard time getting going, so his minutes were often kind of like he was given a short leash then. He's averaging less minutes right now. It is absurd. And I'm with you where I'm having fun this year. But I'm smiling as I wring someone's neck like a Bart Simpson type thing. And I hope it was Chauncey's. But yeah.
No, I'm there with you.
See, I wanted to talk about this earlier, and I'm glad it naturally came back to the same point. I don't disagree with anything you said, and I agree with like most of it. And then I'm about to make an argument that I mostly believe in, but some of it is also devil's advocate. like I understand all of that. Like it's hard for Scoot to develop without a consistent role. He deserves more minutes. He deserves to be the lead ball handler. Everything like the offense looks better with him. But then at some point he has he has to earn. Sorry, I just saw a message. Uh, uh, Sorry, at some point he has to earn the minutes as well, and he's been very inconsistent with that. And I understand inherently, like a bench role is going to be more inconsistent than a starting role. But other players on the Blazers around the league, other top rookies, have been put into similar situations where they do start off with a bench role, and they're able to do a little bit better than Scoot has been doing. So, like, while I want to see Scoot have a more consistent role, I don't I don't know how much he's earned a starting role over Ant. Like it's complicated again because obviously at times he does look better, but then at times like Ant's our vet. At times he plays better, so it's kind of tough. It's just there's been times when Scoot has been given the opportunity and he still hasn't been consistent. Obviously, the last 10 games have been a lot better, and it's understandable that you have growing pains. Growth isn't linear either, so it's understandable. It's just I'm saying I don't blame him. I don't blame Chauncey 100% because Scoot hasn't made it like undeniable that he deserves to start.
But
Okay.
can I ask you something, Fawad?
Sure.
If you threw Simons in the exact same way we've thrown Scoot in at the same age, do you think Simons would be as consistent as he is now? Because it took
Well,
Simons a while to kind of establish something.
was Simons not thrown into a similar role?
Not his first year and a half.
Not his rookie year, but then afterwards.
I mean, it started to pick up, but he was getting more consistent play. Granted, you have Damian Lillard too, so you have someone who can kind of you can rely on to be there for 30 points a night. We can't really rely on Simons to be there for 30 points a night.
That was what I was going to get at. If I can hop in here real quick, I'm not trying to finalize any of that, but the big difference to me about earning minutes versus pushing the little baby bird out of the nest and making seeing if you can fly, trial by fire kind of idea. Making someone earn their minutes makes sense when you have a competitive team. When Simons was underneath Dame, it makes sense that Simons didn't start. He had 5 starts in his first 3 years. He didn't average more than 20. He averaged 20 minutes a game his second season. Simons, 17 his third. Didn't average more than that till his fourth season. Suddenly he's at 30 minutes a game, and we can you can think about why if you start doing math. But Simons definitely, like when you're on a competitive team, yeah, earn the minutes. If Simons wasn't good enough to be in rotation, he shouldn't be. Or then you lose CJ and suddenly he is, whether whatever else. But we're not a competitive team right now. We're not. We again, unless you ask Chauncey, we're not a roster that is pushing for anything other than development. So to put not just one but both of your backcourt in a position where their development is restricted because another guard is prioritized in front of them, and on top of that, it's not a Dame guard. It's not just that our team isn't competitive, so we should be not prioritizing development, but it's that the guard that we're saying is in front of them. He's a sixth man, guys. He's never been an all-star. He's I understand that he's a good shooter, but in the West, he's just not a starting guard. Anthony Simons is just not a starting level guard on a competitive roster. I'm not trying to be like snap at you guys about that, but I think fans in general need to get this through.
No, I agree.
Anthony Simons is a bench player in a competitive on a competitive roster. So to put that level player ahead of the development when we are not a competitive team, when we're not having a competitive year, when we're not trying to win games, and we should actively, arguably, be trying to not win games, it just doesn't make sense. It's back to that same thing of the team is being pulled in 2 directions. And I am so tired of looking at a fork in the road and acting like the fork is just going to stay in front of us. Like we're there. We were there last year, like you said, Alex. The time to trade Anthony would have been when his value was up. At this point, we're running up against the deadline where if we pass this deadline, he's an expiring contract, and any team that we try to trade him with is just going to look at us and be like, meh, we can just wait, so why would we give you value? It's not that they won't make a deal with us, it's just that our deal will have no value because they won't need to give us value. The only, I'm ranting now, I apologize. But as far as the crux of what you're saying, that argument is all over the place right now with fans that make him earn his minutes. On a competitive roster, when we have a bunch of good players, yeah, make the rookies earn it. Right now, man, we gotta we got to make him earn it. We've got to force him to earn it by getting him out there. And the one numbers I really did want to have today, Fawad, after we talked before, and I kind of brought up when when Scoot plays, I think 26 minutes or more is where I put the bar at before. When he plays more, his stats look so different than when he plays less. And I actually went and looked at it, and I didn't finish it out, and I don't have it here in front of me, but I set the bar all the way up to like 20, I think 27 and a half, and the difference between his stats above and below is it's not insignificant. And again, it's just come back to that thing of, yeah, some players can be a firecracker, ready to blow up as soon as they come off the bench. Other dudes need warm-up time, need runway to really take off, and Scoot's just that guy. Like he needs runway, and we are not doing him any service by having him, playing like 20 minutes off the bench, 100 games into his career.
Again, I do agree with a lot of that. I understand like wins don't matter for us, so we should just take the hit or whatever and let him start. But again, the other side of the argument would be that how sure are we that he would be able to? Okay, no, let me reframe that a little bit. Better players would probably, even though they would do better as the focal point, I think people would argue that if he was going to be as good as we want him to be, he would have done better in the role that he has right now.
I could see that. Yeah. No. Yeah. If he's that good that we should, let him have the starting spot even when he hasn't earned it, you'd think he'd be, a ratio of that good when he's coming off the bench. I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I do think part of it is that whole thing about a runway versus a firecracker player, where I do with the runway, it's an arc, it's not a direct line, so there's going to be that kind of that curve, and when he has less minutes, you just never get that curve off the ground. But, oh dang it, I lost my train of thought on that.
Let me add something in here.
Go ahead.
So one thing with basketball players in general is it's a very mental thing. You can get in a shooting slump, and then all of a sudden you're questioning. You could be Klay Thompson, and you're questioning, should I shoot this three because I've missed the last three, right? Some players starting affects them more than coming. Like if you come off the bench, it's almost like it's harder for them to get themselves going coming off the bench. Whereas when you're starting, you get the starting lineup, you feel the crowd is going crazy because the game's starting, and you've got those juices flowing already. Some players excel coming off the bench, watching the game, seeing how it's developing, seeing how players are playing in certain spots, and then coming into the game being able to execute right away. One thing that Keith said, and I've said this like on Reddit a lot, is Simons has always reminded me of like a Jamal Crawford, where he needs to be the sixth man, come in, just play some shoot, let him shoot, get him 20, 25 minutes, let him just be offensive, and then that's it. You don't need anything else from him. Let him shoot 10, 12 times like Jamal Crawford. Be a sixth man, win sixth man of the year, be your third, fourth option offensively, and that's the perfect role for him. But so I think that could be something with Scoot. He could be one of those players that needs to be starting, needs to have that feeling of starting to be even more effective than he can be. But I get what you're saying, Fawad. You would think even if he is as good as we think he should be, coming off the bench, he should still be producing at somewhat of a decent level.
And maybe a big factor in why he isn't showing that kind of, like, why we're seeing more of a drop when he's coming off the bench than you'd expect. We talked earlier about the inconsistency. We talked about how, like you were saying, Alex, kind of that short leash, long leash idea. If he's got a starter, he knows he's going to be allotted for about 30 minutes. If he makes some mistakes, he knows he's got room to go for it. If he's coming off the bench and makes mistakes off the bat, he's like, oh my God, I might only have 15 more minutes to get this right. And that's a different mindset for a player. In addition to that, though, Fawad, you mentioned we don't know, and that's part of this too. We're only gonna find out if we start him, because like we're running out of time here. Beyond Anthony Simons and that the whole deadline leverage stuff, this draft coming up, we're not in a great spot to get Cooper Flagg at this point. Also, partly because of the things we're talking about, team pulling in different directions, blah blah blah, winning too many games, all that. But so many of the other high value draft targets are guard wing type players, and so if we're going to end up with any of those guys in whatever draft spot we end up, we've got to know what we have in Scoot and Shaden. Like, we know what we have in Simons. He's had 7 years of tape. We've got it. We know what Simons is. Even if he gets a little bit better here and there, we know what player he is. We've got to know more concretely about both what Scoot and Shaden have in them. Like it's a stress test. We're at the point of like again that trial by fire versus like letting them kind of ease into it. We've got to know how they perform under pressure, and we don't have years to find that out. We have months. Like it's got to happen now. If or otherwise, yeah, we just go into the next draft with all these the same questions we're asking right now about Scoot, Shaden, Simons. We're going to ask about Scoot, Shaden, and Bailey or Harper, or maybe I'm still being too, optimistic because I'm putting us way too high up there. But it doesn't get better otherwise.
Yeah, decisions have to
No.
be made. We're kind of stuck. I mean, I get it. You got Simons. You can't just not play him. You want to trade him, so you got to show that he can be, who we know he can be. But at the same time, you got these young guys that you want to get in there and develop. And then at the same time, these players themselves don't want to lose. They're not out there to lose. They're out there to win. So it's like, we all kind of agree that Chauncey Billups does not have a very good offensive scheme. So then you're throwing that on top of everything else where you get Scoot out there who's trying to be a playmaker, and offensive plays they're running, these sets they're running are just the creativity is as if he went and played NBA 2K13 and took a playbook out of there and is like, we're going to run these plays. I've seen how they work, and this is what we're going to do, because it's just there's nothing there. They're the worst sets I've ever seen. I don't know half the time what's going on.
Can I share like one of my favorite social media posts of the year of the basketball season this year? After Nate Bjorkgren, coaches for a few games, right, and then Chauncey comes back, and people saw the difference in how Scoot was playing and this and that. And I saw someone post about like, what's the difference? And someone says coaching. What was the difference in the coaching between those games and this one? I put up two gifs, and they were both traffic guards, I think it was, where the I said this is Chauncey, and it's like the guy just kind of traffic guard standing there with the sign straight and uniform and professional, and the other one, this is Bjorkgren, and it's the guy, just one of those gifts of a traffic guard doing all the like crazy dances in the intersection, like going back and forth, and like that's just like the simplest explanation of the difference between those two coaches, man. And it showed. It's a fun joke, but when you saw a difference in the product on the floor and how the players not only played, but how Scoot comes off the court doing an interview where he's being candid and hasn't had time to think about his answer, and he says, "Yeah, I'd rather do that than sit in the corner hoping for that shot." Like, yeah, man, let's see it. Give him a chance. I'm getting all hyped up now. I want to see Scoot get a chance, and it's got to like I'm still hopeful that after the trade deadline here, even if the roster has people still on it and we're waiting for some off-season weirdness that probably is even less likely to go well for us as far as value, I'm still hoping that after February 6th, it's the backcourt has got to be those young dudes. We got to see them, and we got to see Klingon, and even we haven't talked about Monty or Denny on this pod, and I know they're kind of. It's interesting because someone brought up they're closer to Simons in age. I think they're both 24, almost 25. So they're not like our young 20-something core of Scoot, Shade, and Klingon. But I don't think that means that Simons gets lumped in with them either. I think it's like they're almost those transition wings like we had with Mo Harkless and Aminu back in the day. It's just kind of the way this team tends to roll with some of the guard and the big core, and then the wings kind of getting like slotted in and out. But Tumani and Denny are players to be excited about too. We got them under long-term control, and they are young and still developing, a lot like Scoot and Shaden and Klingon. And I just want to see more of those beta seeds grow.
Those two players there are the kind of players that their game translates as they get older, because they're not like reliant on just being an offensive firepower. Tumani is great defensively, and he's a high energy guy. And honestly, the last couple of games, he's played pretty well offensively too. And then you got Denny, who's, kind of a playmaker, can rebound, can play defense. So it's all these things that you're not just relying one thing from them. They all kind of do a little bit of everything. So they would fit in perfectly with our younger guys as they develop and get better.
I got a question for you guys. I'm Fowad. I'm not trying to cut you off, though. I don't know if the internet's slow. I'm not trying to.
I'm good.
Cool. I have a question, just kind of a theoretical. I probably should have dropped this in earlier, but maybe fun here at the end, too. Maybe teasing a future conversation. Which Blazer on the current roster will be an all-star first? Like, who will be our next all-star of the guys we currently have?
I mean, the easy answer is Shea. Because I'd say there's an argument that he's the only one that even has that high of potential.
I think that's a fair argument.
But, like, we don't know if he's going to get there.
Right. That's
a lot of questions there.
that's basically what I'm trying to set up with here. Is yeah, Shea's got the ceiling, but there's all those silly cliches about the best ability is availability and all that kind of thing. Like I'm not just talking about his health. He plays games, but he does have a bit of a habit sometimes of disappearing on the floor, and it's been less recently. But then we've also seen him get benched for the defense, and it's one of these things where like, just since we referred earlier to like, hey, even if Simons isn't on this roster, if we get to the next draft and we don't know what we have in these two guards, and we end up getting another guard, and you get back to the same problem. At this point, I come back to what I said earlier in the pod when I was out of turn. You asked me about talking about Scoot, and I was like, "Well, hey, Shaden, I'm genuinely more confident that Scoot can be like, hey, he's a point guard that can be on a good competitive team than I am that Shaden can be a like number 1 or number 2 option on a competitive team." And that's again, like we need that data right now. Like play those dudes.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to spare us from going into this Shaden talk because that is exactly what I was going to talk about.
That's fine.
I am the way Fawad kind of felt with Shaden or with Scoot earlier in the year. I'm starting to feel that way with Sharp. Like I know that this dude can be as good as we think he can be, and he has the gift to do it. But there is something, I don't know if he's just completely frustrated, so he's just disinterested. But there is something going on there. You can see it on the court. You can see that he I know that's maybe part of how he is just on the court is he's kind of laid back and looks like nothing really. There's just like lately, there's nothing to it. Like he could get an amazing alley oop, and it would just be like he just turn around and run back and play defense, and it's like there was no emotion. We're losing it, and I don't know what's going on. My answer to your question, Keith, is I don't think we have one right now.
I mean, that's a worry too. Obviously, like that's certainly is a big concern if we think we have a core 3 players and 2 good role players that we're planning on holding on to all 5 of those guys for 3 to 4 more years, right? That's we got it.
Yeah, but that's another reason why I feel like it's so important to play these guys and to really see what we have, because like you just said, we come into this draft coming up here. There's a lot of good guards, right? Seems like it's that way almost every draft, but if we feel like Sharp maybe can't take that next step and be that next guy, that's someone we have to think about trading, replacing, because if he has value just because of what everyone thinks he can do, but if we're not going to utilize him and if he's not going to develop the way we think he can, we may be better off moving him to get more pieces to try to rebuild somewhere while we're still extremely young.
I'm looking up Sharp's contract right now because I'm already never mind. I can just do quick math.
I think he only has 1 more year, right? Because this is his 3rd season.
Yeah, that would be correct. Yeah, and it's going to be the team option, which always gets signed because of just team control. It just makes more sense for a young player. I don't think I'd be ready. I don't think I see the team being ready to move off Sharp. Oh no, yeah, I got you. But I think the big question for me is just where Scoot came in with he's a number 3 pick, but he's a point guard. So like we talked about earlier, the point guard isn't your number 1 option, and I think that can be a disconnect with fans when you think of like high pick has got to be your 20-point a game guy, 25-point a game guy. Again, people talk about Cooper Flagg coming up. He's going to be an amazing talent, but I think there's a lot of discussion that he's not a scoring talent as much as he's just this all-around awesome glue guy that can make your team that much better in so many ways. But it just interesting food for thought in that sense of it's not always going to be about the scoring side. With Shaden, though, that's what I was saying is where we brought Scoot in despite being the number 1 pick, he's a point guard. I want him to be a point guard, and I think we're seeing that he can be a good playmaking point guard type player. With Shaden, my perception with Shaden when he came in was that this guy had Mike Schmitz has got him having such a high ceiling that it was a gamble on the draft at number 7. But if he hit the gamble, that this dude is going to be, like we've said, Alex, the next T-Mac, right? The next guy, like he can be at that level of superstar, 3-level scorer, athletic dude who just makes it all look so easy. And he does make it look easy. But I'm losing a lot of faith that he can be that type of impact player in the sense of being a number 1 focal point of the offense. And, again, if we get another good guy that can do that, maybe he's our wing player who's more of the release valve. But just to highlight, with everyone getting up in arms about Scoot and the expectations, I am more worried about my expectations with Shaden, just because he has such a harder to hit target.
Yeah, I'm starting to get there as well. And Shaden's got a nasty mid-range game. He's got a nasty game. He can hit them pull-up mid-range shots. Go ahead, Fawad. Sorry.
It's a little bit frustrating because if you guys remember the preseason media day, Cronin said like the main focus of the season was to figure out like what's going on with those two, like what do we have in
Yeah.
Scoot and Sharp, and we're over halfway through the season and that picture hasn't gotten that much clearer. With
Dude,
Sharp,
yeah.
it might be more muddied.
Like
So
Cronin specifically
that's
didn't say Simon's name in the preseason, and yet we've seen Simon's continue to be the focal point of at least as far as the guards, for so much this season, man. The pint glasses that came out, the pint glasses are Scoot, Shade, and
yeah.
Klingon. Like
Simon's not
Simon's
very
been
good.
here. Simon's been here how many years? He's someone that all the fans are familiar with the name and face, and you didn't put him on these glasses. Like it just seems so clear to everyone but Billups, maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot of things not clear to him, I think.
Hey, actually, no. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. I was going to throw something in there, but I can save that to kind of tag in at the end. I'll just for something for something coming up. Sorry, I jumped the gun there.
Throw it in.
You could go for now.
Oh, are you sure? Okay, cool. Sorry, I wasn't. That was not meant as any sort of passive. I was like, hey guys, come on, I'm ready to go.
No, do it.
Because believe me, I'll keep rambling about Shay. We barely touched on Monty Denny. We can stay up, guys. It's we could be up here till at least 11:30. I'd say.
We could also make it a trilogy and bring you back next week too.
Oh, that's a thought. I'm not gonna look at the schedule now, but I like this idea. Well, okay, we need the guards, and we can come back for the forward.
You know what? Let's do that. Give us a little taste.
This is beautiful. Okay. Well, now, yeah. I mean, we've already done a little taste with the Monty and Denny stuff as far as next week. Like, if we're gonna get into the wings, am I just kind of filling in Sean's spot here? I like this. I can be a
at this point, yeah.
But what I was going to tease with, as far as not for us for next week, but I fucking love that. I'm here for it. Tomorrow, the Blazers playing the Bucks tomorrow. The Dame coming back once again. Yeah, Bucks are here in town tomorrow with Dame coming back. Nice. It was such an awesome time. Were you guys in the building possibly last year when he came here? It was a great time, man. We had a whole ton of our podcast friends and all the third bench friends up at Pines had a giant, massive photo of I don't know. I'm gonna guess it probably like 50-ish people, give or take. There was a lot of people in that shot that all showed up in building for that. Tomorrow night though, for the game, I've talked to you guys about how I haven't podcasted in a while, and we're gonna get recording at some point, and we keep trying to get around to it a little. We'll fit it into the schedule somewhere sooner or later, but Mr. Burkhart, my wonderful co-host on Trailcasters, and the pregame and postgame host on Rip City Radio, for anyone out there, download the iHeart app and listen to the pre and postgame on there. It is a great time, much better than the postgame content available on TV, in my opinion. But tomorrow, before the Bucks game, Chris has invited me to come join him on the pregame radio. So I was going to go down to the game anyway, and now I'm going to go down a bit earlier. We will be on at 5 p.m. tomorrow night. Hear me live on air with Chris. It's probably going to be just kind of a live version of Trailcast, as much as we can pull that off with all the radio guidelines, but we'll see how that goes.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be a very, very fun game to be at, and I'm excited for you, Keith. You get to talk some Blazer basketball on the radio too, so that's always fun.
Yeah, man. Yeah, just like with this stuff, I love coming on. I haven't been podcasting nearly enough, so getting to go and do some live radio is a nice throwback, and I can't wait for it. So tune in.
Fawad, do you have anything else you want to
add? Not really. I'm just at this point could probably just merge our podcast and call it Unbiased Trailcasters.
Hey, there we go. And that's like an oxymoron though, man. Trailcasters, definitely. I have never been unbiased. I cannot claim that one. I love it though. Yeah, for real though. I'm here all the time. If you guys ever want a voice in there, man, we'll get our pod back on the airwaves eventually. But I love coming and doing this with you guys, and you're both great to talk to. So anytime I can join you.
Yeah, we love to have you.
I believe you're going to be back. I believe it. Okay, well, Keith, once again, thank you for joining us tonight. I actually enjoyed this conversation a lot. I feel like there was a lot to discuss that we got to go in depth on, so I appreciate you being here talking with us.
Always. Love you both.
All right, everyone that is still listening to this amazingly long podcast, because I feel like this is one of the longer ones. I hope you guys
tech
enjoyed
difficulties,
once again, Keith. Yeah, that's right. We'll throw that in the middle. We'll throw that there. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Once again, Keith, thank you for coming. As always, Rip City, baby.